Deep inside Russia, 150 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, a team of operatives was lying in the snow, waiting for a ghost. They weren't waiting for a passenger train. They were hunting the Pole North Group Logistics Express, a massive heavy-haul train carrying 2,000 tons of 152mm artillery shells destined for the Sumy front. The Russians knew this route was a target. They had protected this junction with everything they had. R330 Jetels. Jammers were blasting electronic noise to block radio detonators. Thermal cameras were scanning the tree line, but the Ukrainian sabotage team didn't try to fight the jamming. They outsmarted it. They knew they couldn't detonate a bomb remotely, so they hacked the one thing the Russians couldn't jam, the railway signaling system itself. By manually shorting the relay cabinet, they turned the track signal to red. The Russian engineer slammed on the emergency brakes, thinking the track ahead was blocked. He stopped the locomotive exactly where the ambush team wanted it, inside the kill box. The moment the wheels stopped turning, the trap snapped shut. The operatives didn't use missiles. They used incendiary devices thrown directly into the locomotive's ventilation intake. In seconds, the magnesium fire melted the engine block. The jamming equipment was useless against fire. The thermal cameras were blinded by the heat. By morning, the main artery supplying the Russian invasion force was severed. But this wasn't just arson. It was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. In the next 15 minutes, we will show you how this signal hack works and why Russia's 85,000-kilometer railway network is about to collapse. To understand why burning one single locomotive in Bryansk is a strategic catastrophe, you have to understand a fundamental truth about the Russian army. It does not run on trucks. It runs on rails. The Russian Federation covers 17 million square kilometers. It is the largest landmass on Earth. To move an army across this distance, you cannot use convoys of trucks. The distances are too vast, and the fuel consumption is too high. Instead, Russia relies on a massive state monopoly network called RZD, Russian Railways. This isn't just a transport company. It is a militarized organization. Russia is the only country in the world that maintains a dedicated branch of its armed forces called the Railway Troops, Железнодорожные войска. These are 10 specialized brigades whose only job is to build, repair, and protect the tracks that feed the war machine. The workhorse of this system is the VL-80 electric locomotive. You have likely seen them in footage, those massive, blocky green trains pulling endless flatbeds of tanks. VL stands for Vladimir Lenin. These beasts weigh 184 tons and can pull a payload of 6,000 tons. They are the titan of Russian logistics. For the invasion of Ukraine, the Bryansk Junction is the heart of the beast. It is the central hub where rail lines from the deep Russian interior converge before splitting off toward the northern front lines near Sumy and Kursk. Every day, dozens of these VL-80 locomotives pass through Bryansk, carrying everything from 152mm shells to T-90 tanks. The Russian generals believe this system is invincible because of its sheer scale. They have 85,000 kilometers of track. They have thousands of locomotives. They assume that if one track is blown up, the railway troops can fix it in a few hours. And usually, they are right. If you blow up a piece of rail with a missile, the repair crews can replace the steel rails in 4 hours. It is a minor inconvenience, but the Ukrainian partisans in Bryansk figured out a flaw in this logic. They realized that while you can fix a track quickly, you cannot replace a burned-out electric locomotive easily. These machines are complex. They rely on massive transformers and rectifiers to convert 25,000 volts of electricity into traction power. If you destroy the engine while it is sitting on the main line, you create a 200-ton roadblock that is welded to the tracks by its own melted wheels. You cannot just push it out of the way. You need a specialized recovery crane trained to lift it. And while that crane is working, nothing else moves. The Titan is strong, but it is rigid. It relies on perfect schedules and clear tracks. And that rigidity is exactly what the ant, the partisan saboteur, was waiting to exploit. So who are the ghosts haunting Russia's railways? They are called ATESH. In the Crimean Tatar language, the word means fire. And unlike the Ukrainian army, which fights with tanks and artillery on the front line, ATESH fights with something much scarier: presence. They are not a commando unit dropped in by helicopter. They are a decentralized network of Ukrainians, Crimean Tatars, and even Russian citizens who are operating deep inside enemy territory. They are teachers, engineers, and railway workers by day, and saboteurs by night. Their philosophy is simple: we are everywhere. While Russia spends billions on S-400 missile systems to protect the sky, ATESH realized that the ground is undefended. You cannot put a soldier every 100 meters along an 85,000-kilometer railway. This creates what military strategists call a permissive environment for sabotage. The beauty of their tactic is how incredibly low-tech it is. A Storm Shadow missile costs $2 million. The tool used to stop the train in Bryansk cost $0. Reports indicate that ATESH operatives use simple construction tools to pry open the signaling relay cabinets, the gray metal boxes you see next to train tracks. Inside, they don't plant a bomb. They simply pour a liter of flammable liquid on the delicate wiring and light a match. Or in the case of the locomotive strike, they use incendiary sabotage. They wait for the train to park, approach the ventilation grates, and toss in a simple chemical mixture that burns hotter than engine steel. The Russian FSB is helpless against this. You can track a missile on radar. You cannot track a man with a crowbar walking through a forest in the middle of the night. But to understand why this is so effective, we have to look at history. This isn't a new tactic. It is the revival of the railroad doctrine from 1943. During World War II, Soviet partisans used these exact same
The team leader
methods
has studied the
to cripple the Nazi supply lines before the Battle of Kursk. They realized that destroying the track is useless because it can be fixed in hours. But destroying the rolling stock, the locomotives and wagons, creates a permanent deficit. ATESH has modernized this doctrine. They aren't just blowing things up randomly. They are targeting the specific choke points that the Russian military relies on. By burning a relay cabinet, they blind the automated traffic control system for that entire sector. Trains have to switch to manual control, moving at walking speed, communicating by radio. By burning a locomotive, they remove the physical horsepower needed to move tanks to the front. It is the ultimate asymmetric trade. Russia loses a $6 million electric engine. The partisan loses a $5 jerry can of gasoline. And the mathematics of that trade are bleeding the Russian logistics machine dry. So the partisans stop the train and set the locomotive on fire. Visually, it looks like a single burning engine. But strategically, they just detonated a logistical nuclear bomb. To understand why, you have to look at the fatal flaw of the Russian railway system. It is a rigid conveyor belt. Unlike a truck convoy, which can simply drive around a burning vehicle, a train cannot swerve. The Bryansk Junction is a double-track electric line. That means there is one track going north and one track going south. By destroying the locomotive right at the junction switch, the partisans didn't just block one train, they blocked the entire line. Here is the nightmare scenario for the Russian logistics officers. A VL-80 locomotive weighs 184 tons. When the partisans burned it, the intense heat likely welded the steel wheels to the track and melted the traction motors into a solid block of metal. You cannot just push this out of the way with another train. It is a dead weight, locked in place. To move it, you need a specialized recovery train equipped with massive cranes. But here is the problem. The recovery train is in the depot, 50 kilometers away. And it can't get to the crash site because the crash site is blocking the track. They have to bring cranes in from the other direction, which could take days. And while they are figuring this out, the domino effect begins. Russian military logistics operates on a push system. They don't wait for units to ask for ammo. They shove thousands of tons of shells toward the front every single day on a strict schedule. Behind that burning train in Bryansk, there's another train carrying fuel. Behind that, a train carrying tanks. And behind that, a train carrying food. They are all stuck. The railway signaling system is designed to prevent collisions using block sections. When the first train stops, the signal behind it turns red. Then the signal behind that one turns red. Within hours, you have a traffic jam stretching back all the way to Moscow. And this is where the genius of the Ukrainian wait and strike tactic becomes clear. They didn't strike the train in the middle of nowhere. They waited for it to reach the junction switch. If they had hit it on a straight piece of track, the Russians could have just repaired the rail. But by burning it at the switch, they damaged the complex electrical mechanism that allows trains to change tracks. Replacing a rail takes 4 hours. Replacing a custom-built junction switch takes weeks. So now the North Group of the Russian army, 40,000 men fighting near Sumy, is looking at their supply depot and seeing empty shells. The shells they were supposed to fire tomorrow are sitting in a burning metal box 200 kilometers away. The soldiers on the front line don't know about the burning train. They just know that the artillery support has suddenly stopped, and that silence is the sound of a logistical collapse. When the sun rose over Bryansk on Sunday morning, the fire was out, but the damage was done. Official Russian reports tried to downplay the incident, claiming it was a short circuit. But military analysts looking at the map see a very different reality. By severing the Bryansk line, ATESH has effectively put a tourniquet on the North Group of forces. This specific railway artery was responsible for feeding the Russian offensive in the Sumy direction. That means thousands of tons of ammunition, diesel fuel, and heavy equipment are now sitting in rail yards hundreds of kilometers away, unable to move. And in modern warfare, a delay is as good as destruction. If a Russian artillery battery near Sumy runs out of shells tomorrow at noon, it doesn't matter that there are plenty of shells in a warehouse in Moscow. Those guns go silent. The infantry loses cover. The line breaks. This is the logistical starvation that Ukraine is aiming for. They don't need to destroy every tank. They just need to destroy the schedule that keeps the tank running. But the impact goes deeper than just ammo. It is psychological. For 2 years, Russian commanders have operated with the assumption that the rear is safe. They believed that once a train left the factory in the Urals, it was untouchable until it reached the Ukrainian border. ATESH has shattered that illusion by proving they can strike a heavy locomotive inside a guarded junction 150 kilometers deep in Russia. They have forced the Kremlin into a security nightmare. Now, every time a train stops at a red light in the middle of a forest, the engineer has to wonder, is this a real signal or is it a trap? Russia will now have to divert thousands of soldiers from the front line just to guard bridges, junctions, and relay cabinets deep inside their own territory. They will have to build armored trains. They will have to slow down their entire logistics network to a crawl. And that is exactly what Ukraine wants. The Titan is bleeding. Not from a massive wound, but from 1,000 paper cuts inflicted by ants it cannot see and cannot catch. The burning locomotive in Bryansk is a warning. In this war, there are no safe zones anymore. The front line is everywhere. If you want to see how Ukraine plans to use these same partisan tactics to target the Russian nuclear railway convoys next, make sure you are subscribed. We are analyzing the leaked maps right now.